Okay. The next one. Verb tense errors. We spent some time on this last week. Couple of things. You need to use verb tense to be very precise in distinguishing among different times that things happen in sequence. For example, when I arrived yesterday, it had already been raining for 3 hours. What does that tell you? Yes. Okay. Okay, I arrived yesterday, that's past tense. What about the rain? Okay, it was raining before I arrived. It didn't start raining when I arrived, though both of the things are in the past, right? That's called past perfect. Past perfect is it happened before something else happened in the past. Okay, does that make sense? What if I say, I have been teaching in public schools for 32 years? Is that present or past? Yes. Oh, you got to make a decision. It's still going on into the present. So when something started in the past and it continues into the present, we call that present perfect. Okay? And so be careful that your verb tense illustrates the order of events in your writing. Okay? The next thing, here's something that we do a lot in conversation. You ready for this? I came to school yesterday, and I'm driving down the street, and this kid, I don't know who he was, but he's just walking right along, and he's talking on a cell phone, steps right out in front of me. Now, when I'm talking to you, and you're watching me with all of these motions and hearing the tone in my voice, did any of you have problems following that? But if I'm writing, this is what you get when I'm writing. I got to school yesterday. I'm driving down the street. This kid steps right out in front of me. He was talking on his phone. I don't know what he was thinking, but I almost hit him. So what's the problem with it in writing? It's really long. What else? Pretty soon your reader's saying, okay, when did this happen? Did this happen yesterday? Because all of this present tense is going on right now. Help me out here. So be really, really careful about verb tense shifts. If you start in the past, stay in the past unless there's a logical reason to shift. Okay? Be very careful of that. Very common. I'm finding it in lots and lots of the papers that I'm reading. Okay? Now, the next one. Beware of padding. When you're writing professionally, to whom are you writing? Did you see how I did that? Did you see that nice formal use of whom? And how I didn't end that with a preposition? That's because I'm an old, stilted individual. But anyhow, when you're writing professionally, to whom are you writing? And what does that mean? Help me out. Okay. And when are they going to be reading it? I'm going to ask you kind of a personal question here. Do you suppose that I take home all of the papers I get from students at the university, take off my shoes, put my feet up in my easy chair, sit down, so that I can read student papers for pleasure? Not on your bippy. Okay, when I sit down to read student work, I may take it home, but I sit down in a formal situation, I'm reading it, I want to get through those papers as quickly as I can. When you add extra stuff in there that doesn't have any reason, then you're wasting my time. And that's what we call padding, extra words that are just there to be there. Let me give you an example. A teacher should treat all of her students with love and respect. What I mean is, the teacher ought to be courteous and friendly to every student that comes into her classroom. Okay? So I put an extra phrase in there. What did I put in that just really didn't need to be there?
What I mean is.
Yeah. And we do that all the time in conversation, don't we?
I'm sure kind of people, like whoever is reading the paper, they probably get an idea like what they're saying or like just what they're trying to say.
Yeah. So you really don't need the what I mean is. Or this is one of my favorites. In my opinion, it seems to me that hello? You just told me that it was your opinion. Okay? So be very careful of that because we do it all the time in conversation. So when you're writing, remember that you're writing for people who don't have a lot of time. They don't need to have all of the little extra things we put into conversation. Does that mean that you're going to leave out detail? You're going like this. I didn't see anybody go like this. Why not? Please. Okay, it might help it to flow better. Other reasons. Yes. Okay, what do you mean by that?
Just the way that you order a sentence, if you can have like 7 words and explain everything, but not have all these filler words.
Okay, so you want to keep detail. Particularly in an example, you're going to want to have good, clear detail so that you create a picture for your reader. That doesn't mean you're putting in extra verbiage. Okay? Okay. Number 6. Oh, I guess I only gave you 6. So and such. Once again, we do these all the time. Give me an example of a sentence with so. No fair reading, just come up with one. An example of a sentence with so.
She was so kind.
She was so kind. Now, can I repeat that to you a little differently? Oh, she was so kind. What does so mean? Absolutely nothing. We're using it as an intensifier. But do you know what? In English, so is not an intensifier. It's not like very or intensely or completely or eternally. It's just a word. So if you're going, I did it, didn't I? If you're going to use so, then make sure that you use so or such to add additional information. Notice the example here. I was so late that the game was ending as I walked through the gate. Now, how is that different than saying, I was so late? Please. Okay. So always remember when you use so, pair it with that and have something to come after that. I want you to write clearly so that people will read it and be impressed. I was so late that the moon went down and came up 3 times before I got there. Yes?
So just as a clarification, so don't use so as like an adjective, because it's I was so late that, and then I explained.
Exactly. So and such are really the first half of a subordinating conjunction. Okay? So if you use them by themselves, you've really misused them. Now sometimes you can get by with using them in a situation where the additional information has already been explained and it refers you back to it. But that's very rare, and I wouldn't try it on this writing assessment, to be perfectly honest with you. Okay, questions about this quick and dirty grammar? No? You okay? Have I run it into the ground? Yes.
Wait, did we talk about the imprecise or casual word usage?
Oh, no, we didn't. Where is that? It's above number 4. That's what I skipped. Oh, imprecise word usage. And I've given you some examples there. This is my favorite. And it sounds... Okay, guys, excuse the way I say this. ladies, excuse the way I say this, but be there for me, to me, sounds like a soap opera. She was always there for me. What does that mean? A teacher's job is to be there for her students. What does that mean? You're not telling me anything. Does it mean that the teacher's job is to be in the classroom so that when the students come in, there's a teacher there? Does it mean that the teacher's job is to be available to give help and support to her students? Does it mean that the teacher's job is to be available to give consolation and love to her students? What does be there for someone mean? Please.
So I guess what you're saying is it kind of leaves it a multitude of different things of different meanings.
What I'm saying is say what you mean and mean what you say. Okay? Other examples. If we move up this. Kids. Ladies and gentlemen, kids are not human children. Kids are baby goats. When you're writing now I say the word kids all the time, and I refer to everybody as kids. My college students are kids. My high school students were kids. My elementary school students were kids. My children were kids. Sometimes I call my wife kid. But I don't do it when I'm writing. Okay? Get. How often do we use get? What does get really mean? When you get something. See, that's the problem. Does it mean to obtain? Does it mean to understand? Does it mean to become? Okay, so it's imprecise. We don't know what we're saying there. So, questions about that? Please.
I have a question before about the there for me. If you said that and explained yourself in the next sentence, would that be okay, or would you just...
Do you know what I would do?
All?
I would say she was always there to help me.
Oh.
She was always there. And then I have this problem. Where is there? She was always available in her classroom to help me. She was always on my side. Or I felt that she was always on my side when I was depressed or sad. Do you see the difference? Okay, please.
Is there a problem using get in other ways rather than obtain? Because I always say, oh, I get it, you know.
But what are you really saying?
I understand it.
Wouldn't it be better to say I understand it? And don't you love it when you're... How many of you work with children? Don't you love it when you're explaining a concept and the child raises his hand and you say, how can I help you? And the child says, I just don't get it. Well, what don't you get? I don't know. I just don't get it. And what has the child told you?
I don't understand.
Or I'm frustrated. Okay? So let's use language that brings things to the fore. Now, I've got a half hour. And I want to use that half hour to talk about compositions as a whole. Is that all right?